morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection. We will begin today with our prayer of surrender. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it, I perceive it, and now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. All right, it is August 22nd today. We are more than halfway through this month, in which our theme is the beginner's mind in our devotion book, which just means, as we talked a bit about during the devotion on Sunday, that we keep our cup empty, or rather, we know there are times when our cup should be empty so that the Holy Spirit can fill it with more truth. If we already had all the truth, then the Bible wouldn't have said, when He, the Holy Spirit, has come, He will guide you into all truth. So there's always going to be more truth to discover, and that word more is going to be a key word in our teaching later on today. But we won't have room for more if our cup is already full, or if we believe we already know all the truth there is to know. So this month's devotions have all been on this theme of the beginner's mind. And today's particular devotion is called I Am the Path to Happiness. So here's our affirmation. Let's read it together. I will not put qualifications or conditions on the source of my happiness. I will not wait until something happens or until I reach a certain place to be happy. I create my own happiness. Going back for a minute to our theme this month that I just talked about, the beginner's mind, that also has to do with becoming childlike. And if you've ever noticed, children don't really need a reason to be happy. Children are happy for no particular reason all the time. And if they're not happy, they will find a way to create some happiness. So in that sense, we should certainly all strive to become more like little children. The text of the devotion begins actually with one of the quotes we had in last week's teaching, and it's by a woman named Agnes Replier. She says, it's not easy to find happiness in ourselves, and it's not possible to find it elsewhere. So we talked about this at length in last week's teaching, how if your choice is between difficult and impossible, you're going to go with difficult. But that's not the part I want to focus on today. Let's go back to being childlike, to having the beginner's mind. If a kid gets hungry enough, they will eat anything, even kids that are picky eaters. When you're starving, either physically or emotionally, all food, any food is good. And the devotion makes this comparison. If you want to be happy badly enough, if you are hungry enough to be in a happy state, you will do whatever it takes to find, or rather to create, happiness for yourself. So let's remember today that you don't need a specific reason. If you want to be happy, just choose to be happy. All right, here's our ending prayer. Giver of life, help me to know that the path to happiness lies inside me and only inside me. Even though finding happiness within is sometimes a difficult path, I will walk it because I want to be happy. Amen. All right, so before we get into the teaching for today, I want to give you a message from Miss Diane Froman. She texted me earlier this morning and said Happy Tuesday, and that she was doing fine, that she misses us, and she wanted me to say hello to you, her Connection family, for her, and to let you know that she is healing much more quickly than she even thought, which why should we be surprised? We knew that was going to happen. So we love you, Miss Diane, and we miss you, and hello to all of you from Miss Diane. So yay, they're giving you a hand. So we talked about happiness last week and how levity is the anti-gravity, that in order to rise above or to levitate from our humanity into our divinity, we've got to stop taking things so seriously sometimes. And we'll continue in that same vein somewhat today, but we're going to expand the subject from happiness and levity to creating things like joy and peace, and how we can arrive where we want to be by believing in and focusing more on the positives than on the negatives in our lives. Our devotion yesterday morning was about this. We talked about the optimist versus the pessimist, if you were on that Zoom call or if you read the devotion for yourself yesterday. So before we begin, let's take a deep breath and then repeat our special connection affirmation. I allow perfect health in my body, perfect peace in my mind, perfect unconditional love in my heart, and the perfect divine timing of spirit to guide my life in thought, word, and deed. Okay, so today's teaching is going to be a mashup of several ideas and some previous teachings. You all know what a mashup is, right? Musically, it's when an artist combines or mashes up two different songs into one song. So my inspiration for today's teaching came from two things. The first was Bishop Pearson and what he's going through that we were given an update on Sunday from my brother right now with some physical challenges he's having. I've been thinking about him and praying for him and sending him all my positive energy and good intentions, as I know we all are. And so those thoughts led me to a teaching I did several years ago that is simply entitled More. And the premise is, nobody is denying or ignoring the fact that he's sick. It's just that we believe in his health and his wholeness more. So then my inspiration for the second part of the mashup was my granddaughter. She's just started her second year at a very innovative school from which I pick her up sometimes in the afternoons. And in order to do this, I had to download an app on my phone so that I can, when I walk up to the door, I have to scan it, and I have a special code that lets them know I'm an approved person to pick her up. Everything, is automated like that now. But the cool thing about this app on my phone is that every day the teachers put pictures of the kids that they've taken throughout the day on it, and they give a little description of what they're learning. And I was so pleasantly surprised to see that they are incorporating both yoga and meditation into their daily routine, which I think is fabulous for the kids. So one day last week, this was part of the description of their day. It said, students took a break for yoga. We talked about affirmations and repeated some of them together. We found the eye of the storm within ourselves to stay calm, chanted Om and our names while learning that vibrations regulate our nervous systems. We also practiced a guided meditation. So this is what they're doing at this school with 5 through 8-year-olds. So how grateful am I that my granddaughter gets to be a part of that and is learning that and participating in that as a part of her school day. So we're also going to talk a little bit about meditation, and I'm going to try to weave those two topics together into a mashup. So let's get started. When I first did the teaching about more, it was in the month of September. And it actually fell on the International Day of Peace. So I started then, as I will today, with some information about that. Here are some quotes that were offered on the website, the official website for the International Day of Peace, and they're going to serve as our quotes today. The first one is from Mother Teresa. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Next, from the Dalai Lama, we can never obtain peace in the outer world until we each make peace with ourselves. Next, Albert Einstein said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. All right, the next one is, our mind must make peace with our heart before we can witness peace in the world. All right, and the next one is from Buddha, who said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. And finally, from a man named Ban Ki-moon, I've always loved that name. He was a former Secretary General of the United Nations. He said, on this day, he was talking about the International Day of Peace, let us promise to make peace not just a priority, but a passion. Let us pledge to do more, wherever we are, in whatever way we can, to make every day a day of peace. All right, so that last phrase of that quote from him brings me to the first topic today, which is simply that one word, more. There are several different ways we define that word, one being more in number. But the definition that I want to focus on right now is more as in greater in degree. Let me give you an example. I've introduced the idea to you before that I actually got from the teachings of Esther Hicks, that since we know energy flows where your attention goes, which just means whatever you focus on most or give more of your attention to grows bigger and bigger. Then if there's something in your reality that you don't like or that you don't want to be there, the quickest way to be rid of it is to just withdraw your energy in the form of your focus and attention from it. It's kind of like that old joke about the man who went to the doctor and he said, Doc, it hurts when I do my arm like this. The doctor said, well, don't do your arm like that then. Stop. And that's a bit of an oversimplification, but it's a concept that makes sense. If you're eating a certain type of food that's making you sick, don't eat it anymore. If you're doing something that's physically hurting you, stop it. That seems like pretty conventional advice, not a radical concept. But when we shift it over to looking at our reality, it doesn't seem to translate for most of us, because for most of us, if there's a problem or an obstacle or something about our reality that we would rather not be there, we do the absolute opposite of turning away and withdrawing our energy from it. And instead, we tend to focus all of our attention on what the problem is and try to keep working out a solution with mostly our mind. And if you don't do that, you sometimes get accused of not living in reality. Okay, if you decide just not to pay attention to it, people will tell you, oh, you're not being realistic. You're not living in reality. You're not acknowledging things as they are. There's a famous quote by Bobby Kennedy, the first Robert Kennedy Sr., that is the perfect answer to that, I think. He said, some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? Now, that's the difference between reacting to the circumstances around you, which, as we've talked about before, is on that level of consciousness where you think of life as happening to you, and living on the level where you begin to create your own reality. So in order to create a new reality for yourself, or to recreate the reality that already exists around you, you've got to be the kind of person that looks at something that doesn't exist right now and says, why not? Rather than just that person that sits around looking at the things that are wrong saying, why? Why me? Or why this? Why does this have to happen now? So what all of that has to do with the concept of more is this. Speaking for myself personally now, it's not that I don't see what's going on in the world right now and all the things that are wrong and unjust and that some may even describe as evil. It's not that I don't see all of that or believe it to be the reality of the present moment. It's just that I believe in what could be, as in what Bobby Kennedy's quote said, those things I dream of, more. In simplest terms, I believe in the reality of the existence of evil and sickness and injustice. I'm not saying those things are not real and that they don't exist, but I believe in goodness and wholeness and equality more. I told you a story once about taking my granddaughter and her mother and my other daughter-in-law down to Little 5 Points one day a couple of years back. I seem to be talking a lot about my granddaughter today. Any excuse, right, for you grandparents out there? So we were just sitting at a table outside in this little juice bar place drinking some smoothies when a lady approached us from the street, and she was selling some incense sticks that she had apparently made. And so we bought some, or rather, I bought some. I don't know how it works in your family, but when Mama's there, I usually pay. So we divided them up, and I gave them some. And so after the woman left, there was some discussion between the two younger girls with me, Jasmine and Brooke, for some strange reason about the possibility of the woman having put some kind of hex on the incense that they were about to throw theirs away. And I don't know, I guess maybe Little 5 Points kind of just has that vibe sometimes. And so they got scared for whatever reason. And I said, hold on a minute. Being that I'm the one who paid for these, if you're just going to throw them away, give them to me, because I am not afraid of any hex anyway. And that then led us into a conversation about my belief that love is indeed the greatest and most powerful force in the universe. Every single morning when I wake up, that's how I begin my affirmation for the day. I believe that love is the greatest, most powerful force in the universe. So in light of that, I told them, even if this woman had tried to put some sort of evil spell on the incense sticks for whatever her reason was, which I doubted, but even if she had, I believe that the light and the good in me was stronger than any evil or darkness in her. So it's not that I didn't believe it was a possibility that she could have had some evil or nefarious intention. It's just that I believe in the good and in the love that's inside me more, and I believe it's more powerful. So I believe what I have inside me is more powerful than what any evil person has inside of them. So that was a valuable lesson for the girls that day. So let's translate that into the collective now. It's not that we don't see the reality of what's going on in the world around us. It's just that we believe in what could be, in the higher consciousness that we're already well on the way to shifting into more. And the more of us, and I'm talking now about more in the sense of numbers, the more of us who start shifting our focus and attention away from all that seems to be wrong right now in our present reality and toward a new reality that we want to create, the quicker that will become the present reality. When you believe more in what you are creating than what is in the process of falling apart, because it is part of a failed system and part of an age that is passing away, then that creates space for something new to become our reality. Okay, so now we're going to go to a piece by a man named Lee Harris as he gives us some practical steps on how to move and shift our focus and energy from the current reality to a new reality and why it's so important that we do so. He says, you have to be mindful that anything you are focusing on as a truth and believe is going to happen, you are helping to create that. So you would do far better to visualize and create what you'd like to see than to try and fight some of the lowest energy activities now occurring on the earth. And I'm aware that what I'm saying could be controversial because there are many people in my life who I respect, who are what I would call freedom fighters or activists, people who put themselves on the front lines of making change. And to me, they qualify as light workers in this world, fulfilling a very specific role. But everyone isn't cut out for that role. And if you don't feel you're one of those people, that's okay. You fulfill a different role. You're not a coward for not wanting to be on the front lines. It's very easy when you're a sensitive person to feel responsible to fix all that is wrong in the world and to question whether or not you're doing enough. But you've got to step back and see where your energy flows best and where it is that you feel yourself in a high vibration. That will be where you can make your greatest contribution. The people I know who are activists and freedom fighters were born to do it. It lights them up and it's what keeps them going. It is what drives them. If the energy of that type of work calls to you, great, go for it. But each of us must find our individual place and trust that within the tribe, all the positions will be filled and all the needs will be met. All of us doing the specific thing we were meant to do will create what needs to be created, but not one of us can do it all or be everything to everybody. All right, time out. We've been talking today about withdrawing our energy from all the bad, chaos, evil, wrong that's going on in order to focus on building something new. But he's bringing in another piece here. He's saying, wait a minute, there's still a need for those people who came here to fight for justice or to clean up the mess that we as a collective have made. But if you've noticed, he said these people usually know that that's what they came here to do. And they thrive when they are in the thick of things. That's where they are in their highest vibration. And I believe that too, that there are people whose purpose that is. But if trying to fight and trying to figure out the solutions and being in the middle of problems all the time feels draining to you and puts you in a low vibration, and all it does is depress you and bring you into a state of hopelessness, then there's your sign that's not where you belong. That's not what you came to do. You might be much better off withdrawing your energy and shifting your focus onto building the new, so that when the activists and the freedom fighters are done cleaning up the mess of the dismantled old system, then they'll have somewhere nice to go, right? Okay, you got to build a place to go when everything crumbles. If what you're doing doesn't allow you to be in a high vibration most of the time, that's your indication that that is not your place to serve. And honestly, I think not as many people are supposed to be activists and freedom fighters as are trying to be. Most people are doing it because they think that's what they should be doing. But what they really should be doing is following their heart and working to raise the collective vibration. I think the fact that there's so much turmoil and confrontation between people right now is because a lot of people are just doing things because they think that's what they're supposed to be doing. They think they're supposed to be fighting when maybe that's not their place. So how do we do that? Let's go back to Lee Harris. He has some suggestions. He says, joy is a very high frequency energy, and all of us should be creating as much of it as we can. On those days where I feel like I'm not at a place where I can create much joy, I find the best way to turn things around is to shift my attention on to something joyous. Now, obviously, we will all have days where we need to sit with our feelings and really feel what's coming up so we can heal it. But the majority of the time, we should be creating joy. When I find myself in a place where I'm not happy with the world as it is presenting itself to me, when I've swallowed a lot of fear, or if I'm in an anxiety loop, my choices are to surrender to the anxiety, fear, and unrest I have and just let it take me over, or I'm going to surrender in a different way and find tools that will support me and help me move the energy out before it gets stuck. So I'll ask a friend if I can talk to them, or go to a healer or some other professional to hold space for me while I'm working through it, or I'll find something online to watch or listen to that will help me raise my vibration. All right, so he's saying here that what I've been saying, when looking at and interacting with your reality is keeping you stuck in a low vibration, withdrawing your energy from it and focusing on something else can sometimes be the best thing to do. But that's not the end of what he's saying. He continues. He's saying that just brings me up to neutral and out of the struggle. Then, once I'm in neutral, then I can begin to create joy. And especially in our current climate, this is what we have to watch out for. The voice that says, how can I be in joy today when so many other people I know are suffering? Or how can I create joy when I know something awful is going on in another country? The argument around that is, okay, if their suffering is distracting you from creating joy, then find a way to go help and serve those who are suffering. And if that thought resonates with you and puts you into a higher vibration, then go do it. Or sit and meditate and send love to those who are suffering. That's another way to contribute. But if that thought only brings you more anxiety, then what you're feeling is misplaced guilt, and a signal for you to shift your focus to something else and begin to create joy, because raising your own vibration is the best thing you can do for the collective in that moment. If you continue to focus on and direct your energy toward your lowest state, you will only add to the pile of problems that already exist. When you create joy instead, it permeates out and allows everyone else to rise a little higher as well. Everyone around you then benefits. But if joy feels too far off and unattainable, start with peace. Peace is a step up from heaviness and anxiety, and from that foundation, you can begin to build joy. Okay, thank you, Lee Harris. Let's go back now for a moment to our original premise. It's not that we don't acknowledge that sometimes we're going to be upset, that sometimes we're going to be depressed or angry or overwhelmed, but we believe that when we're in those states, it's just that we believe that peace and joy, or the potential for it within us, is stronger. In other words, we believe in peace and joy more than we do those other feelings, because we know they will ultimately bring about a better result for us as well as everyone around us. So as much as is possible, when you're feeling in that low place, get yourself to neutral first. Okay, find your peace. Or as my granddaughter's teacher described it, the eye of the storm within yourself where there is calm. I love the way she put that. Then from there, you can begin to create joy. So speaking again of my granddaughter and her school, we'll shift now to the second part of today's mashup, which is a focus on meditation. I did a teaching some years back called Put Your Foot Where You Feel the Fit. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was kind of an odd title. So sometimes people will remember titles that are catchy. That might sound like a strange title for a teaching about meditation, but it actually comes from an old 70s song about dancing, and to literally put your foot where you feel the fit. And just as you must do this when you're dancing, it's also a good rule to follow in your life. As I was saying earlier, not everyone is cut out to be on the front lines as a freedom fighter or as an activist speaking out against the world's injustices. Some are, and that's great. But if that's not where your foot fits, don't put it there. And don't feel guilty that you're not. On the other hand, everybody can practice creating joy in their own individual life. You don't have to have some special calling or talent to do that. Everybody can do that. And everybody can learn how to find the calm within themselves in the eye of the storm through the practice of meditation. And that's where you need to be in order to start putting more of your focus and energy on what you're trying to build than on destroying what it is you don't like or what you don't want to accept as your reality. That's where you need to be to start asking that question, why not, about the things you don't really see in your reality yet, rather than focusing on why is all this mess here. All right. So I know we've talked about meditation many times and about the importance of it, but I feel like I want to go over it again because, number one, I think the entire concept is really still vastly misunderstood by a lot of people. I think it seems much more complicated and intimidating than it really is. And number two, it's one of those things that everybody knows is good for them, just like eating healthy and exercising, but they find it hard to actually put it into practice. So hopefully today we can demystify it if it's still mystifying to you, and perhaps give you some practical tips beginning with this one. The best way to begin a regular meditation practice is to just start. Someone asked a famous novelist, I think it was Ernest Hemingway, how do you write a novel? And he says, sit down and start typing. So just like a lot of other things that are new to you, you might go into it feeling lost, like you're not doing it right, and that's normal. No one, or hardly anyone, does anything perfectly the first time they try it, or even the first few times they do it. But with persistence, it will pay off. I promise you that. Meditation, it's good to remember, it is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. If you're going to establish a regular practice, it's important that you find a method or a combination of a few methods that you feel fit your personality and your lifestyle and your particular needs. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to keep it up, at least not without a lot of effort and forcing yourself, which only creates more stress, which negates the whole purpose of why you're trying to meditate, or one of the purposes, which is reducing your level of stress. So in other words, if you're stressed out about the fact that you're not meditating or about thinking you're not doing it right or whatever, then you might as well just not do it or make the attempt, because that's only adding to the stress in your life, which is counterproductive. So just like when you're dancing, your meditation has to be fluid. You have to find the flow with it. You have to put your foot where you feel the fit, because when you're dancing, if you put your foot somewhere where it doesn't fit, you're going to either step on somebody else or end up looking like Elaine from Seinfeld. Does anybody ever seen the way that character dances? Okay, it's definitely not fluid the way she dances. It's pretty funny. So one of the first things I want to talk about concerning meditation is that it is important that you approach it from the right mindset. Again, for whatever reason, there's a lot of mystery and even anxiety, unfortunately, that's been built up around the practice of meditation. And it's been portrayed to be something that it's not. When some people think about meditation, they envision having to sit cross-legged on a cushion with their eyes closed in absolute quietness with absolutely no movement for an hour or longer as the only way you're going to get anything out of it. And that is just false. There are various types of meditation that are based on complete silence and stillness, and there are people who indeed do this for hours at a time, but that's definitely not the standard that should be set, and it's also not the only way meditation can be effective for you. So how you approach it mentally is very important. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we got onto a particular subject, and she made the statement, "I know I should, but," and that sparked a thought in my mind. You know, so many of us live so much of our lives in that posture of, I really should, but. And then we come up with all these reasons why we don't want to, or why we're afraid to, or why we don't have time to. And I found myself thinking later, if you're living most of your life doing things from that standpoint, from the level of consciousness of I should, but you really don't want to, then that's not very enjoyable, okay? That's not a very enjoyable way to live. That's not creating joy. And so that's how we've just spoken about how we raise our vibration. That's one of our main goals is to create joy. So if this is not creating joy for you, if you're living most of your life in this area of, oh, I'm doing this because I really feel like I should, that's being counterproductive. So, but that's how so many of us approach things like meditation or yoga or any spiritual practice, really. We're only doing it because we think we should and not because we enjoy it. So let me, if that's where you are right now, let me relieve you of this mental burden. Don't do it. Don't do it, because if you do it in that mentality, it's not going to be helpful to you. In that same conversation with that friend of mine, we talked about yoga, and I told her, like I've told many other people, one of the main reasons I do yoga is because I have noticed the positive results of it in my life. I used to wake up years back 5 to 7 days out of the week with lower back issues. So I found out that when I do yoga regularly, and it's not every day, but, and side note here, I don't beat myself up if I go through a day and I don't do yoga. I just say, tomorrow's another day. I'll pick it back up when I can. I don't feel guilty when I can't do it. But once I realized the fruit of it, once it was bearing fruit in my life that I was waking up without back pain, then it became much easier to make time for it because I could see the positive effects of it. So that's just like with anything, meditation included. When you start seeing the positive effects, it's much easier to make the time to do it rather than this, oh my gosh, I should. So at first, though, I had to set an alarm. I had to get in the discipline of it. I set an alarm every day for a certain time. Now, did I ignore that alarm sometimes? Yeah. Do I still ignore that alarm sometimes? Yeah. And again, though, I don't beat myself up for that. I just say, well, I skipped today, but tomorrow I'm going to get back on it. And if I don't get back on it tomorrow, I'll get back on it the next day. But I find myself wanting to get back on it because of the positive results I have seen in my physical body. And you will find that that is much the same with meditation. You start to kind of want to do it because you see the positivity it is creating in your life. So, just like yoga, there's lots of different kinds of yoga. And there's lots of different kinds of meditation, all these different spiritual practices. You got to find one that fits with you, because if you don't, you're going to be less likely to do it on a regular basis. So, if you want to establish a meaningful, effective, consistent practice, it's important that you approach it lightly and that you don't see yourself as being at war with it. Don't look at it as something you've got to tackle. There's no joy in that. And among other things, any spiritual practice you engage in should bring you joy and should be something you enjoy. So, without further ado, we're going to go over quickly 7, which you may have heard these before, but if not, it's just a good reminder. There are 7 basic, there's more, but this thing I'm going to read covers 7 different types of meditation. So as I'm reading through them, kind of see which one you think would work the best for you if you want to start doing this, or if you have, and maybe something you're doing is not working for you. Maybe you'll hear about another type of it that you think would work for you better. So I got this from a website called Improvement Pill. And like I said, maybe you'll hear at least one of these you think will work for you. It says, meditation can be one of the most challenging habits to build because we often try to force ourselves to stick to a certain form of meditation that may not suit us. When this happens, we naturally meet it with a lot of resistance, which makes any attempt to meditate feel like a waste of time. In order to build a successful meditation practice, you need to find the one that fits you best. Number 1, mindfulness breathing. This is a meditation that focuses on the sensation of breathing, the actual air going in and out of your nose. Whenever a thought appears, you simply notice it, let it float away, and bring your attention back to your breathing. Now, this one is actually the closest to what people usually think of when they hear the word meditation, because it is an attempt to clear your mind as much as possible of all thoughts. Each time a thought comes into your mind, you're supposed to let it float away and then bring your focus back to your breathing. Supposedly, the longer you do this, the less and less the thoughts will come up. This is the kind of meditation that my husband practices, and it works for him. Me, not so much, but that's the whole point of this teaching. You have to find what fits you. Okay, continuing on with the description of mindfulness breathing. The key to this meditation is the noticing of the thoughts, which is why it's called mindfulness. You are practicing your ability to observe your thoughts without judgment. All right, so now we're getting into a little bit of what Eckhart Tolle teaches. Almost all forms of meditation share some of the same benefits, such as stress reduction, self-control, and focus. Mindful awareness meditation has specifically been known to improve levels of creativity, allowing you to come up with various solutions to individual issues or problems. It also trains your mind to let go of thoughts, particularly negative thoughts, which prevents overthinking and the negative side effects that accompany it. In my experience, I have learned over time that this form of meditation is not for everyone. It can be a difficult one to start, but is very effective if you really want to train your mind to let go of negative thoughts. So if your main issue is you have too many negative thoughts, this might be a good practice for you. Type number 2, metta, M-E-T-A, meditation. Another name for this type of meditation is loving kindness meditation. The goal of this type is to send love out, first for yourself by repeating a predetermined phrase such as, may I be happy, or may I be healthy. It's really a lot like our connection affirmation. Or may I be free from suffering, or may I experience clarity. Then you repeat that same phrase, replacing I with the name of a friend or a loved one, while visualizing yourself sending them love or health or freedom or clarity. Next, you visualize sending the content of this statement to a stranger, then to someone you dislike or someone who has hurt or wronged you, and finally to everyone or the universe as a whole. Loving kindness meditation increases your empathy and has also been shown to reduce pain and help with PTSD. Research also suggests this type of meditation increases the amount of gray matter in your brain that is associated with your emotional intelligence. Meditation is good for people who feel they need to deal with the emotions of hatred or anger, whether towards themselves or others, because with this form of meditation, you are basically training yourself to be more loving. It is noted for bringing more happiness into your life, and it is a good form of dealing with past trauma. So if those are your issues, then this might be a good way for you to deal with it, that meditation. Number 3, guided meditation. This is any form of meditation where a narrator is guiding you through the process. You simply follow their verbal instructions. This is probably the easiest form of meditation, but listening to someone else may also prevent you from going deep enough to realize many of the benefits that other forms of meditation provide. It is, however, a wonderful stress reducer and relaxation tool. Guided meditation is something you should consider if you have tried other forms but felt as if they were too difficult. There is no harm in putting on some training wheels and getting used to just sitting still for an extended period of time before moving on to a more advanced form of meditation. Okay, so that's guided meditation, where there's a lot of them on YouTube, or sometimes when you go to a class, somebody will just say things like, imagine yourself in a field, do this or do that, and you're just listening to them and putting the images in your mind they're telling you to. Number 4, focused attention meditation. Now, this is my favorite personal form of meditation. This form involves placing your focus on a particular stimulus or object. It can be a sensation or a sound inside or outside your body. An example of inside your body would be listening to your heartbeat or to the natural little buzz in your ear. An example of outside your body would be listening to an air compressor or running water or rain or the trickling of a fountain or ocean waves or white noise, birds singing. Or you can focus on a visual object. The goal is to focus all or as much of your attention as possible on a single sensation or object. Now, something that he didn't mention here, but that is closely related to this that I personally practice a lot is either lighting a little stick of incense or sage or something and watching the smoke. Other people do this with a candle flame. You can focus on the flame itself or on the smoke and the patterns it makes as it rises up, and just kind of lose yourself in watching the smoke for a few minutes. And the thing I like about using the incense is that it has a built-in time limit. It eventually burns down and the smoke disappears. So there is a definite ending point where you don't really have to do something as formal as setting a timer. I have in the past used a timer to say, okay, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes or 11 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever. But that tends to make me anxious, which is what we were talking about before. Is totally counterproductive to what I'm trying to do in the first place. I feel very tempted when I know there's a timer going to open my eye and say, how much longer am I going to have to sit here? And it doesn't seem to be the same when I'm just watching that smoke for some reason, yet I know when the smoke's gone, my time is done. So, another method that wasn't mentioned here, but that would fall into this category, is watching geometric shapes. Sometimes certain YouTube channels will have, or apps will have these like kaleidoscopic images that you can see that are different colors coming in and out, and a lot of times they're accompanied by music, and you'll be surprised at how quickly that will kind of calm you down or kind of put you in a different state when you need to be in a different state, just watching something like that for a few minutes. And lastly, in this category are nature scenes or animals. There's an Instagram channel that I think it's just called Ocean Life, and sometimes it'll show jellyfish or just different schools of tropical fish swimming. And do you know that that's why they have, a lot of times they have fish aquariums in doctors' offices? Because watching fish swim actually has been proven to lower your blood pressure, to lower your levels of stress. So watching little videos of, whatever, kittens, dogs, animals, birds, that is a great form of meditation. Or just sitting outside and watching them live or watching it on video. So again, these types are my preferred methods of meditation. So that's where my foot fits. So that's mostly the kind of meditation that I practice. Going back, it says one of the benefits of this focused attention meditation is that it activates a part of the brain that awareness meditation does not. And this is the part that helps us to overcome impulses and solve problems. So it's good for things like helping you break a habit or an addiction, or if you want to increase your level of concentration in school or on the job. So that's focused attention meditation. Number 5, mantra meditation. This is also known as chanting, and it can be done with music or without. This form focuses on repeating a phrase or a series of phrases over and over. A good example that we should all be familiar with is sometimes in our church services we'll sing that chant, Om Mani Padme Om. Okay, that's what we sing, that same phrase over and over. So you can choose one of the many that already exist in the Buddhist tradition as well as the Hindu tradition, or you can create your own. If you create your own, he suggests that it's better to word them positively than negatively. For example, you could say, I am calm over and over again. That's better than saying, I do not worry. Because even when you're saying, I do not worry, that word worry is in there, and do not, which are negative. He said it's better to say things like, I am calm or I am at peace. All right. The benefits of mantra meditation are that the intensity builds with the repetition. You are literally saturating your consciousness with one specific thought or idea, and saying it out loud just adds to the strength of the vibration. Mantra meditation can help you if you feel the need to reprogram the way you think about yourself or a particular situation. Some more examples are, my life is full of joy. I can achieve anything I put my mind to. Mantra meditation is especially helpful for those who have beliefs about themselves that they feel are holding them back, because it allows you to pinpoint a specific issue or problem and reverse or improve it. So that is mantra meditation. Number 6, pranayama. Pranayama. Pranayama meditation. This is also known as breath control meditation. So it's not, the mindfulness is just the breathing in and out, but pranayama is where you actually try to control your breath and the pace of your breathing. And it is often taught in the form of the 4-4-4-4 box method. You breathe in while counting to 4, then you hold your breath for a count of 4, then you exhale for a count of 4, and then you wait 4 more counts before you inhale again. This form of meditation is best known for its calming benefits. It has been shown to lower blood pressure, significantly reduce stress, as well as help you fall asleep. So if you have trouble falling asleep, try that whole little box thing of in 4, hold 4, out 4, wait 4, then breathe in again. This form of meditation is excellent for people with high stress or who are prone to panic attacks and generalized anxiety issues. So that's pranayama number 6. Seventh, and finally, moving meditation, which is obviously just like what it sounds, when you are completely focused on some form of physical movement, whether it's walking or performing a chore, a household task, or something more formal like yoga or tai chi or qigong, all these things you can find on the internet, or even dancing can be used as a moving meditation. The main benefit of this type of meditation is that it teaches you how to enter the flow state. If you find it especially difficult to sit still, this might be the best form of meditation for you. All right, so that is a little short Meditation 101. I hope I have been able to demystify it a little for you if you were having issues around it, and that it is a little less intimidating now if you were finding it intimidating or confusing. In conclusion today, going back to part 1 of our mashup, the whole purpose of meditation is to get you to a place where you are calm and centered, because only from there can you launch into that bigger, higher place of more? Are bad things happening in the world around us? Yes, and they always will. Are some people called to go and fight the good fight and be activists and spokespeople for justice? Yes, but not all of us are. And if you're not, there's no reason for you to feel guilty or like you should be doing that. Sometimes it's better to be one of the people who, instead of engaging in the fight, simply withdraws your energy from it, whatever the problem or issue happens to be, and focuses on building something new. All of us can do that. We can all believe in more. We can all believe more in the good and the light and love within us than in the hatred and evil and darkness that is sometimes outside of us in the world. We can believe in health more than in sickness. We can believe in freedom more than in the systems that want to hold us captive. And we can believe in unity more than in separation. As Jesus said, we must be in the world, but not of it, which sometimes just means looking at the same world, the same situation or set of circumstances from a different angle, knowing that what's inside you, your vision of the future or your version of reality, is more powerful than anything that's outside of you. Amen? Amen. All right, let's sing, Benny, Blessed Always, to end our session today.
Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say Amen. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say Amen.
Have a great week. I love you. Be at peace.